I'm going to show you how to make this super easy wreath. I just used a piece of tape to trace my circle, and if you need a supply list, one's going to pop up on the screen in just a second. So I traced a circle and I made it super light. You never want to draw hard with a pencil when you're going to paint something. You can even erase it. You don't even have to trace or make a circle if you don't want to. And I am mixing with my Prang colors. So you can use any kind of paint. I'm just mixing a brown. So I took brown and I added a tiny bit of red and blue into it just to tone it down a little bit. And I'm going to make these little branches. And I'm barely touching the paper with my brush. One of the things that can help you be a better watercolor painter if you're going to do things like this is to touch your paper so lightly and just kind of allow the brush to do the work. I am just lifting my brush up as I get to the ends of my branches so that I can make them kind of taper off a little bit. And it doesn't really matter where you put them, but just remember that you're going to have a main branch and then you're going to have little branches coming off of it. So make a couple of those around in a circle. For these branches, I am kind of emulating cedar, which is kind of a little bit darker. The foliage is a little bit darker. And for every kind of greenery that I paint, I never use colors straight from the palette. I always mix my colors. So I am making kind of a darker green. I've got the green and I mixed a little bit of blue into it and a little bit of yellow, and I just want to make it look a little bit more sophisticated. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the end of each of these little branches and I'm just making little blobbies. That's the scientific name for these little blobbies. And I'm going to show you a close-up in just a second. But basically, I'm just touching the ends of these brushes with some little dots. And as you'll see when I do these branches, what I'm going to do is just make a lot of variety in my wreath, so it's not all one type of greenery, because when you look at wreaths you see like pine needles and cedar branches and all types of things. So watch me as I make those. And here's a little bit closer so you can just see how lightly I'm touching this with my brush, just little circles and little blobs. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because when everything's all put together, it will all look good. No one's going to be investigating your little cedar branches very much. You can make them as detailed as you like, or you can make them kind of loose like these. I'm going to speed this up so you can see how I finish the little cedar branches on here. Basically what I want to do is just make them evenly spaced. And remember that we're going to add a lot more to this at the end, so you can leave some space in between them. I'm going to be consistent with that kind of bluish green color, and then I am going to add in some more stuff in just a second. I'm now mixing another color. This is going to be a reddish brown. I'm also making my browns be a little bit different variety so that it looks a little bit more interesting. And on this one, I'm going to weave a branch in between all of the other branches. So I'm going to take a couple of branches and I'm going to make them a little bit more curvy and just kind of weave these in there. And I don't know what kind of greenery this is, but it's winter greenery and it's going to add a little bit of an organic feel. So you can just kind of weave those in underneath the other branches and over top. And it doesn't matter how they look, just kind of make them as even as you can in terms of like going out and coming in so that not one of them sticks way out more than the other. Now I'm going to make a totally different green. This is going to be more of a yellow green. And I've got the green, and then I'm going to mix quite a bit of yellow, and I'm going to make it kind of a yellowish warm green. And I am going to start by making these long pine needles. Generally on these, each cluster has 3 long pine needles on it. So that's kind of the rule that I followed, but if I mess up, I just add another one. And I kind of make them going in the generally same direction, but don't make any going in a weird direction or any sticking out. I made some sticking pretty far out, but that's okay. This is a very loose and free and fun wreath. I'm going to speed this up a bit so you can see how I filled all of this out. And I made the little pine needles go in directions, kind of the same direction, but then they switched to the other direction on the other side, so it kind of makes it look a little bit rounded. Now I'm going to make a totally new green. This one is going to be a blue green, more of like a turquoise really, and I really do want to vary those greens. So this one's going to be a light turquoisey blue green. Make sure to add a lot of water to this or it can get a little bit too dark. And I am going to add some bigger leaves in here. And where I'm adding them is just wherever I see a gap, or, you know, step away a little bit from your wreath and put them in the places that have empty spaces. I am leaving a space at the bottom so that I can make a ribbon, but you don't need to do that. You can make the whole thing greenery if you want to. And how I make these leaves is I just press my brush down and pull. And as I pull away, I lift my brush up so that I get that little tip. So press and pull, press and pull. And you don't have to get more paint necessarily. You can just add a little water to your brush. Some of your leaves will be lighter and some of your leaves will be darker, and the variation makes it really interesting. Make sure to add leaves both on the inside and the outside for balance, and add as little or as much as you like. Everybody's wreath is going to be different, so it doesn't matter what you do. It'll be great no matter what. So in this next part, I painted the ribbon, and then I realized that the video cut it off. So at the end of this video, I am going to paint a ribbon so you can see the easiest way to paint a ribbon on your wreath. So you can just watch me block this in real quick, and then there will be a better ribbon at the end. I don't think I did that well in this ribbon anyway, so, you know, maybe it's for the better. Next, we're going to add some color. So I am going to use that bright red in the Prang, and I'm going to add some berries. And the best thing to do on here is to use that bright red and make lighter and darker versions of the berries. You can't really see up close, but some of these are darker than others. And in some I use more water and less water, and I just dot them all around. And if you don't want any red or any different colors in your wreath, you can just do all colors of greens and blues too. That's also perfectly fine. But random little berries everywhere is kind of fun. And then I will be also adding little stems for the berries with a dark brown. And I'm going to speed this part up so you can see, but remember to just use the tip of your brush to add those little details. And if you feel like you need a little variety, remember in paintings like this, you want to have things that are dark and you want to have things that are light. You can always go back and add another layer of paint over top of things to add some details. We're going to do the bow now. Okay, let's talk more about how to paint a bow. And I'm going to say that this is my wreath. Maybe I'll make this into a wreath. And I'll do the bow. I am going to make a red bow. So I'm actually going to mix this red. And I cheat a little bit with the Prangs, and I add a little pink to my palette because there's no pink in this Prang palette. I wish there was, and I really like a pinky red sometimes. So I'm going to make the base of my bow. This is the part that, just like a little circle. And I'm just going to dry this off with a paper towel. The importance of using paper towels in watercolor, I cannot stress enough. I use them so often. This is a shop towel and it's squished up, but I really use them a lot. And I'm just going to make a little square. And then I might want this a little bit light in the middle, so I'm just going to dab that. And this, I might use a couple of layers on this guy. So a couple different ways to make a bow. You can do one like this, where it's just a regular bow, kind of like a bow tie. And I'll do another one in a second. And then you make these little edges at the end. And there's two ways to make it. You could make it the end like that, or you could make it like that. I kind of like this because it's a little bit more simple. But make it however you want. It's your bow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill this in with the color. I'm going to wait for it to dry. I'm going to do some detail on here. The other thing that I love to do with watercolor is I love to use ink, either white ink or black ink to add detail when I'm done with my painting. We could do that. So let me let that dry, and then I'm going to do another bow here. And this one's going to be really small, but let's say that this is my wreath and I want to make a bow on it. If I just took my red, and I could also have like kind of a loopy bow, and it doesn't need to be very detailed, and then just kind of wait for that to dry, and then I take a lighter version, just water on the top to make this a little bit more dimensional. Kind of a messy brush here. Just some water there. And then you could use a darker color and go in the bottom, but I'm going to wait until it dries to do that. So this guy's drying, and you know what? There's a secret with this Prang palette. If you mix, this is kind of a cool red, and this is an orange, right? So you mix these together, you get a really bright primary red. Same with the blues. So I'm going to just, oh, that's not dry. So if you do this when it's still wet, you can kind of get in there and make these little folds. Well, and this one's really wet, but that's okay. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to wait for that to dry. And I almost dipped that in my coffee. I could use white on this too to add some detail. Okay, so again, waiting for this to dry. A lot of watercolor is just being patient, waiting for things to dry. I'm going to make this into a wreath while I wait. Why not? Look how easy this is. I mean, this isn't going to be super cute, but if you need to make a little gift tag or something, so easy. Oh my gosh, I almost dripped my paint in my coffee again. How many people have dipped their paintbrush in their coffee? I would love for you guys to tell me in the comments, because I do it all the time. Or my tea. I drink a lot of tea, and I always have to be careful not to put my paintbrush in my tea. How much paint have we consumed when we're an artist? This is coming off the page is getting crazy. Oh no. Oh my gosh, again with the coffee. Seriously? It's kind of fun how these like all drip together. How fun is that? So we're just waiting for this bow to dry. All right, so if I want to darken this up a little bit, I can go around it. Is it dry? Is it dry? I don't know. And you can like add detail if you want to. I'm just going to outline this because I want it to kind of have like a rustic look. It's definitely not like an ultra realistic work of art, but it's fine because it's cute and it's fun, and who cares? All right, done with that one. Let's look at this one. This is where I'm just going to add a darker color in the back. Oh my gosh, I have a Band-Aid on my finger. It's so ugly. Okay, there we go. Done. There you have it. Thanks for painting with me, and I hope it was fun.